3, 4, 4, 2, 3, and...
These men are pawns.
I put a price of 20,000 dirham on their heads.
Next, they will be hailed as the two messenger of God.
Against those who would deny his authority.
What the hell's the matter with him? Is he blind?
Well, yeah.
This is unbelievable.
Is a man not allowed a succulent Star Wars offline single-player open-world adventure? I am CouchCube. Get your hands off my Ubisoft. Assassin's Creed Mirage came out almost exactly 1 year ago. This is my first look at the game. There have been a few patches, no more major ones are coming in, and this was described as DLC for Valhalla from the developers. It's not rumour. They dressed it up and made it into a full-blown new title. I'm not too sure how I feel about that. The fact that they changed the location so vastly and have put quite a large amount of brand new mechanics into this AC game, I think that's very much underselling it as dressed up DLC. It's also by far, as you can see, one of the best looking Assassin's Creeds out there at the moment, probably because it's the most modern and using a few of those updated engine techniques. It's not the colossal jump from Valhalla I was expecting, but this is all quality mode. There's one thing I will say about Ubisoft Assassin's Creed games, and I've been looking at so many different performance and quality modes lately with single player offline games. They kind of get their quality modes right all the time. Like, it's always locked pegged 30 and it's always a really good crisp resolution. I can't say that about all of the open world games that are out there for this year. I want to cover briefly a very minor gripe that I clocked quite early on in the game. Now, there's been some changes with that bird that you send out and that ping system that gives you a visual on what's in your vicinity, like through walls. Now, it used to be, as mentioned, a ping, i.e. you would click something on the mouse button, it would send out a little wave, and it would mark where there was treasure or loot or an enemy for a few seconds, just to give you an idea. It wasn't permanent. With this, it's toggle on, toggle off. There is no reason to have it off. It will come off automatically when you start running, but it just felt like something was wrong. Someone didn't clock that. It should be temporary, and it shouldn't be something that you can just sit in the whole time, because it just destroys all immersion. The only reason to come out of it would be if you end up running, or if you just want to soak up the game's visuals. You still have the bird, the buzzard, the hawk. You still have that overhead visual looking for markers on the map, as well as this toggle on, toggle off X-ray vision, and it just makes the whole game feel very different, a little bit too easy, and very un-assassin.
Hold on, won't take long.
If I do not lose these guards.
Some of the spatial awareness of the AI is also shockingly bad, but that starts to fall away. And back to the X-ray thing, you realise why it's implemented is because there's not a lot of vast open spaces within that city cluster itself, and that's where the game really wins against Valhalla for me. Is this is a beautifully dense, amazingly rich populated city. It is back to the old school, back to Assassin's Creed 2, back to that big metropolis space, which is really what pulls me into the series in the first place. That also incorporates the running and the grabbing and always having something to keep you elevated. In Valhalla, you would just lose that and end up in some field in the middle of nowhere. Back to some of these changes, and there looks to have been a massive withdrawal on a lot of boats, rivers, open water expanses and depth within water itself. You're not manning a ship or having a crew, and I saw no larger vessels. There's a stationary one at the front at a harbour, but nothing that you can take out. Very small tributary like rivers that run through Baghdad itself. I was a bit knocked back at how that whole section, what looks to be completely removed. Valhalla had it dumbed down, but Odyssey was rocking it, and it was amazing, to be fair. Back onto the plus point side, there is no T-posing, there is no NPCs walking up to a wall constantly. There's a few weird little glitches with the animals and some of the donkeys and camels, but everything was very much pristine on the presentation front, like flawless, really didn't even spot any frame drops during that synchronization swing. This is a very pretty and good looking game. They've added these sort of spice bags in to sort of flex this powder mechanic that they've got going on. It does look amazing, but you will always forget they fit into the environment so well. It's not something that stands out. Talking of standing out, that brings me over to its sort of disguised position and mechanics. It is constantly letting you blend in with civilians or crowds like all the time, and it puts that annoying white tracer mark around you. It has to acknowledge to you that you're hidden. But it's far more frequent in this game. There's like benches everywhere. The benches have that white dot on them, the same white dot that all of the loot and chests and little baskets have. So you're looking at these damn benches all the time, and there's one on just about every straight within every street. Crikey the fire though. I've also brought back pickpocketing. Consider yourself one of the family. And it is actually frighteningly good fun with this minigame. The rewards are minuscule, however, and even finding like an actual trinket will only fetch about 3 or 4 dirham. The amount of money that things cost in this game just shows you how big a grind you're in for. So switched out the alert mechanic to a full-blown notoriety mechanic, which means everybody will see you as a criminal or a sort of outlaw everywhere all the time if you've got it up too high. It's represented in a graph down at the bottom right, and you have to proactively either pay with an earned gem or pull down posters to lower that status. So there's massive punishment for acting up on the street or getting seen for doing stuff. Again, another cool angle. Those lifts are also back from Unity, I'm going to say. Someone in the comments let me know where they were first appearing, and that's when you hit X and you get to slide right up a rope and get onto the rooftops of buildings a lot quicker. There's also pulling down some environmental objects onto the enemies that are pursuing you. Now we need to have this chat about the combat and what exactly is going on here. Also, that first purchase outfit is way too for me.
There he is. Now is my chance.
What is happening out
This
there?
ends now.
So combat is boiled down to just R1. You've still got a guard on L1, and they telegraph their attacks by going silver just beforehand. You do still have that red compulsory avoid, but it doesn't equal a cool bit of slowdown. It feels so two-dimensional, particularly with the weapons. Now, that is a horrific area with barely any drops at all on the weapon front. They all exist to the same sort of silhouette. There's swords, daggers, there's no two-handed axes, sledgehammers, nothing. Valhalla completely trumps it on that front, but I think the message from the devs on this particular AC is not to be loot and different weapon variation, because if it is, they failed on that brief hugely. Also, one of the things I felt a little bit cheap was some of the synchronization points are just not accessible without going through a really awkward, annoying, mundane puzzle. Some of the times I just couldn't be bothered with it. It may be tied into a quest, it may be something that I'm not allowed to access yet, but I wasted loads of times trying to get to them, or they're embedded deep within enemy territories, and I just gave up, which is a crying shame. Look at the detail on that structure behind me. That's something you don't see every day in an Assassin's Creed game. That's what keeps happening to me. Every time I get annoyed with the changes or how simplified the whole thing is, I get wowed with its visuals all over again. Or I find something cool that I haven't seen in an AC game before, and that brings me over to the dreaded indigenous life subject. And I covered this in Valhalla, what with it being in southeast England, and the most scariest thing being a slightly obese badger. That's wrong. It is actually quite good on the killer cat front, but this, nothing. There's nothing out there in Baghdad in the year that this game is set. This is 900 years after AC Origins on the timeline. That's got crocodiles, hippos. I know it's North Africa, but you could have pumped something in early for us to deal with out in that wilderness. So that inevitably bleeds into the conversation about the lack of hunting and no sort of getting materials from the wildlife that's out in the wilderness. Half the reason to go out exploring or get into trouble is to get a reward from something dangerous. All gone. I checked. I had to go up up to a kill and just make double sure there isn't even a leather reward, absolutely nothing. You do come across some snakes, but they don't throw in any pits, they're not boa constrictors, none of them can really pose a massive threat. They don't even poison you, to be fair, it's just a small bite from each one in succession. Did see an ostrich. This brings me back to that previous point. It's one of the best ostriches I've ever seen in a video game, and against this lighting, the sand, it slides down the dunes on top of the stationary sand itself, and it just looks stunning. This ostrich did look damn good. They have also done away with the bow and arrow, to my knowledge, giving you like a quirky little weapon wheel with the sleep dart on it, and you get given throwing knives from the start. This, again, AC Origins has full-blown bow and arrow systems with different types of sniper bows and multiple arrows coming out. You can actually pump experience points into creating a whole range build. This is all gone again. Wow, Coop, this is really not looking that great from an AC fan's point of view. Well, don't get me wrong, when they pulled back all of that cool parkour running and that dense city and that really cool population all reacting to what your status is, it does feel like an excellent old school Assassin's Creed game. And because they've stripped away a lot of those bells and whistles that have been piling on with the series these past years, it has got a minor bit of freshness to it. But Valhalla is really quite good with that cosmetic change on the visuals and the upgrade stuff, and finding weapons that have a different stance attached to them, two-handed, one-handed, dual wielding, put swords in, and it's kind of got that pawn system with the other Vikings getting pulled in off a server. Mirage, very much more tradition, but it does that cheeky thing that Ubisoft have been doing lately with their AC games, and that is do a bit of campaign and then we're going to stop you and make you do loads of side or some annoying new thing that we've put in that we're going to force you to play. Think those river runs on Valhalla or any other gimmick that they put into their new AC game. This does it with making you have to pickpocket people, very difficult ones, and search for these annoying members that will randomly spawn in new areas of map that you open, and you're locked until you get that section done. The 4-button prompt to deal with the trader or shopkeeper will also get you, and the just lack of stuff that they've got.
What do you have?
Lots of choice.
Back to that creature thing, it does keep hinting in his like hallucination, vision, dream sequence things that there's some like crocodilian dragon. Hopefully that materializes into an actual boss fight with a monster. And if you have a look at some of the DLC or add-on material, costumes or mounts, it's definitely pointing to a sort of supernatural aspect. We just do not see enough of that pumped in into its opening 20 hours. It also just keeps glitching out on its alert system, showing you that you are not in trouble with anybody or any soldiers or even in a restricted area, and you'll walk clean past somebody within their vision cone and it will snap straight to an alert, full-blown status. You will then get chased down and have to move completely from that section of map that you were in. It's kind of annoying, and avoiding soldiers all the time because you're not sure what stage that system's up to does get laborious. But here's the legitimately really good stuff. Running from the enemy across the rooftops, a la The Crow, the old one, not that remake, and feeling genuinely frightened that you're going to get caught and the consequences that are going to come with that, i.e. the ball ache of pulling down all those posters, or even worse, having to spend one of your hard-earned gems with a damn street vendor. These are some employed fighters, so a little bit like Black Flag, you can get some dudes on your side at a high cost to help with dealing with the larger enemies. And this is another thing that I can't get my head around, is there's some big boys, but you can't touch them with your sword. They're fully clad with armor. I haven't unlocked anything strong enough to be able to break that at the moment. I've got acid on my throat throwing knives, which does help, but you're really avoiding as opposed to confronting, and that's not really my favoured stance with playing an AC game. Having said that, I do realise that is the whole mantra of being an assassin. I'm just talking about the previous games and some of the cooler stuff they could have kept in, and some of the things they have put in that's new doesn't really work that well. I think what must have happened is a bunch of legacy devs from the previous games were all pulled into a meeting and told that we need to go back to our roots. Are you with me? Assassin's Creed sort of metamorphosized into this horrific, multi-headed, limbed beast, and they need to sort of chop all that off and get it back down to basics, which they kind of did, but they've fudged it in areas. It's still a very enjoyable experience, but not the best modern Assassin's Creed out there. I do still hold AC Origins and Black Flag and even Odyssey in very high regard, and I now sit Valhalla just below them, but more importantly above this. That next game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, that's based in Japan, the samurai angle, that's gonna make or break Ubisoft. I think the pressure on that being good is huge, and they've just delayed it. The mind boggles to what they're gonna pull in and keep or put in that's new. Only time will tell. I actually don't mind the delay. I've got loads of Outlaws to be getting on with.
How dare you speak with its name?
I have been Couch Coup. I will see you down there.
That's mental! This is some of our best work.